Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Successful Stylist Academy. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. My name is Drea Letcher, and I am the Artistic Director of Successful Stylist Academy, and I am honored to be your host today. Before we dive in and get started, I do want to say thank you to all of you that are giving us those stars and writing reviews. They really do matter. They help the right people to find us. And if you are part of our community and you are helping us to grow and kind of get a little bit more exposure and influence out there, writing a review is one of the very best ways that you can do that. So we appreciate it so much. I have to take a breath because this episode and this spot and this guest is really personal to me, and I'll tell you why. So I might get a little bit emotional, but I want to ask you guys, have you guys ever had a mentor? And I ask because the automatic answer is yes, but the truth is a lot of us have never truly had a mentor, someone who maybe started with you at the beginning of your career or came alongside you at some point in your career. And a mentor is someone who sees who you are, your potential, what you could do, what you could be while you're still in the process of becoming. They inspire your career, your work. They come alongside you and pour into your journey. And guess what, you guys? They don't get paid to do this for you. They're not a coach, they're a mentor. This guest is someone who, a huge advocate for me, and this is someone who did this alongside me in my career and my journey. So most of you already know him, but I have today with us Chrystofer Benson. Chris, are you there?
I am here. I'm excited to see you. And first off, to say I'm super proud of you, like beyond proud of you.
Thank you. Those are the words you want to hear from your mentor someday. I really got the privilege of, we just caught up on the phone to let you guys in on a little backstory. We just caught up on the phone maybe, like a month ago, and we hadn't really talked on the phone for a few years. One of the really cool things about this conversation was talking to you 20 years ago, plus 20 years ago. I'll try not to date us that bad. And then talking to you just a month ago, man, the passion is still there. That hasn't changed. Your love of the industry, you're still doing things that scare you. And this episode is called The Dream Evolution, because that is what I have got to, have a little bit of a seat to see in that. And you have stayed inspired and stayed passionate. So I really want to talk to our audience about what makes that possible, what that's looked like for you, and steal some tangible bits of advice for our audience. So I'm going to jump in with the first question. Go ahead, Chris. Do you want to say something?
No, I think it's great. I think it's great to be doing, things like this. I think it gets information out in a way that people probably, I'm not the guy that really puts a lot of personal stuff across social. I love doing podcasts because I think you get to connect with people and talk. And so I appreciate what you do. I appreciate what, you guys as a whole are doing in the group. And I'm honored to be here, and I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. We are so honored to have you. And I have loved watching your journey, and I'm grateful for you as a mentor and a friend and a peer and all of those things. But to kind of start out, we have to start at the beginning. And don't worry, you guys. He says he doesn't share personal things, but we'll get him a little vulnerable today. Don't you worry. That's what I'm here for.
Andre, so I'm ready.
Okay. He's having his coffee. He's ready, you guys. So we have to start at the beginning. So I want you to think back to hopefully a less poised, more awkward. Let's go with awkward because I love awkward. Awkward, Chrystofer, where did this start? Like, what drew you to the beauty industry? Like, give us a little bit of a history of where that began.
Well, I think awkward's an interesting word. Like awkward for me was like high school. And I don't know about a lot of the people that'll be hearing this, but I just wanted to get through school, right? I wasn't into school. Well, I did really good. I just didn't want to be there because for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew it didn't involve that. And so I had great grades, but terrible attendance. So it was about the time when they started to change that into something different. And, but I just never felt like I fit in. I felt like I had great friends. I had lots of friends, but it was just I was friends with lots of different people, but never really felt like I fit. And I think a lot of people, honestly, when you talk to them about high school, I think a lot of us probably felt that way. After high school, I had always planned on being a criminal lawyer and had prepped for that, did lots of stuff with debate, did a lot of competing with debating, orating, stuff like that. And when I got done with high school, I was so burnt out of wanting to do school that I just decided to go to work. And so I did stuff like throwing marble countertops, stuff, labor stuff, construction stuff, things that taught me very quickly. This is not the long term of what I want to do. But I grew up with a single mother and grew up in my grandparents' house. So my grandparents were hugely inspirational and huge, mentors of mine, because they didn't have to take me in. They didn't have to look after my mom and I like that, and gave me a lot of opportunities. So I moved away to Vegas on my 18th birthday, which is, I don't know why, but that just seemed like the thing to do at the time. And my great grandfather, my beautiful grandfather, had a heart attack. And so obviously I came back to Salt Lake, where I grew up. In the hospital bed, he suggested, he's like, what do you think about coming home and going to school? And I was like, school for what? And he said, what do you think about doing hair? And I just remember laughing and going, where is this coming from? And looking back on it now, I think, you kind of said that in the beginning, of sometimes people see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And I'm a third generation hairdresser. So hairdressing has always been in my family. It's always been doctors, teachers, and hairdressers. And so that was something that was definitely in my family. I remember pushing a broom around in the salon as a kid, sweeping up hair. I also remember the smell of perms and knew I hated them and never wanted anything to do with them. When, you were in I was like, what is that smell? It's terrible. So I never honestly really thought I would do hair, but, this is my grandfather. This is one of the first biggest mentors of my life, was my father figure. And more out of respect for him, I went and checked it out and walked into beauty school and saw 70 girls and went, this could be amazing. And so my intent never going to beauty school was like, this is going to be what I do. He grew up in the Depression era. And so the whole way he sold it to me was, Chris, if nothing else, get a trade. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And so his whole thing was, Chris, you can spend a year, if nothing else, you'll always have this to fall back on. And that's how he sold it to me. And more out of respect for him and who the man he was in my life, I went and checked it out. And, I didn't walk into beauty school with a plan. And I think, there's a lot of people that do. There's some that don't. Some people think that that's the fallback on. I just never really knew what I wanted to do with it. I had, as I said, family in the business, and my uncle was doing a lot of competition work. There was beauty school competitions that I started in, and I didn't win. And that was probably the best thing that happened. You know me well enough how competitive I am with myself. And so that lit the fire, and that was like, this won't happen again. So, growing up playing sports and soccer and baseball and being competitive, it was a natural thing. So that triggered something in me that I never looked back on. And I wanted to know everything at that moment about hair. I never wanted to be in that space of putting yourself out there to the world and not being able to do it at that level. And so in beauty school, probably 6 months is when it really triggered for me of, I need to absorb. And so it changed. And then the plan changed. So that's kind of how it got started. Was dear old grandfather, who was a doctor, thought little Benson needed to do hair. And he saw better than I, because I never in a million years thought I would be doing what I'm doing now at this level, for sure.
Wow. You guys heard it here. So criminal justice lawyer to counterslinger to hairdresser. Grandpa, may he rest in peace, paved the way. So we're welcome, because now we get you, which is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love, I feel like I've known you for a long time, so I know a lot of that, but gosh, we were more similar than I thought, even in high school. And I'm super, super competitive, but I'm also I'm the best kind of competitive, because I'm going to talk so much crap the entire time. But if I lose, I'm still a good sport, and I'll tap you on the butt, after a good game, but with consent, of course. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So then you talked a little bit about some competition work. You're 6 months into beauty college. So what happened after that? What was your very first real job in the hair industry?
Yeah, so having my uncle in the business, the plan was always to go work with him. And at the time, the situation wasn't right. So when I got out of beauty school, I think that was where, my ego was like, I'm going to go get in the best salon in town. So that's what I did. I was like, these are the top salons, and I'm going to go put myself in that situation and work there and thrive there. And then it was probably about maybe at the most 9 months later, my uncle actually booked an appointment with me to get his hair done and came in, and I was like, what is all this? And he says, I want to talk to you. And he says, I'm opening a salon and I want you to come and be the partner with me. And so I'm not even a year out of school, and, we're already talking about owning a salon. And so it became a very fast paced thing because I think in beauty school, Dre, you always think that's your long-term goal, right? But here it is now being put in front of me less than a year out of beauty school. And it was a lot to absorb. And my mind was really more on, I want to win competitions. I want to build my clientele. I want to have a thriving clientele where I can travel and do the things I want to do. So my mind wasn't really there. And it did take some convincing, but we ended up opening it, and it still thrives today. But I was with him for about 10 years. And then, it was a lot of salon and a little education, and that started to change immensely. And I was doing a lot more competition work, and I started connecting with brands and doing a lot of education. And so I always felt like I could open another salon. I didn't always feel like I could have the opportunities of teaching at this level and sharing at this level, inspiring at this level, making a big impact on the industry in this level. I didn't think that opportunity was always going to happen. So for me, I felt like I needed to take the opportunity and move forward, which was one of the hardest things when you build a baby like that and you build a salon. And it was one of the toughest things because it really ripped his and I's relationship apart for a long time. And that's come back around. But it's, one of those things, you have to make some of those decisions for yourself and what is going to be best for you. And I think a lot of times we worry about what other people think, and we worry about, and especially when I think family's involved or friends are involved, because we are caring people, you care about what happens with them. And while being 50% partner, I just walked away. I didn't want to hurt the salon. I didn't want to hurt them. I just knew I needed to go. I knew I needed to do something bigger and different. And so, yeah, it was amazing owning a salon, and love that. But education for me and sharing with people and watching light bulbs go on, man, if there's one thing you can teach somebody and they take it and make it bigger than what you ever thought or what they ever thought, that is like the ultimate for me. So yeah, it changed a bit.
That's where it's at, watching those light bulbs go off. I'm with you on that. And yeah, thank you for sharing all that. It really resonates with me. I mean, I owned my salon as well, and I also did it not a year out of beauty college unexpectedly. It was an end goal. They're not kidding. Ignorance is bliss, because when you're not aware, you will do some crazy shit. But I'm glad I did.
I don't even know what the plan is, but it sounds great. Let's do it.
100%. Yep. I was like, I don't know what a business license, liability insurance, what? But yeah, let's go. So true. But it laid a foundation. I did learn a lot of things the hard way, but I've always been like a self-taught, like, let's get in there and get our hands dirty type of person. And I know that you're the same way. Yeah. And there's a better way to do things, but also it's our story. It's your story. It's my story. Like that's what pushed me. And it was the same thing. I was actually a massage therapist first. So I was doing massage, I was doing hair, I was running a business that was a spa, that was a medical spa, that was a bistro. You taught one of our first classes there. It was amazing. I was on the road traveling for, a hair company at the time, and it started blowing up, and it just was too much. And I had to be like, what makes sense? What sets my soul alive? Just like you said. And there were people when my 5-year lease ended that we had done some of the first things in the, in our area that had never been done before in a salon. And it was beautiful and amazing. And we had an incredible team, but it was time. And there were people there that wanted to fight for it more than I did. But I will say this to also our listeners, that like, we're the only ones that know what that dream is 100%. Like, we're the only ones that can really stand in that space that was meant for just us. And unfortunately, caring about people is wonderful, but you can't allow them to dictate your purpose, or it just doesn't work that way. And everyone suffers when we try to do something that's outside of who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. So I couldn't have agreed more. While you're nice and vulnerable, let's just keep you there. And I want to.
You're lucky we're friends, Andre. Most people would not be getting anything like this. It'd be the top line answers.
I know I'm getting away with a lot here, and I appreciate it. This is special. So I want you to talk a little bit about your mentors, because I know you had some really special people in your career that have made a big difference, who saw how amazing you were and what you were going to be doing. And can you tell us maybe just like a couple of them, and a little bit of like, some special secret moments and stuff with them?
Yeah, totally. Well, I think my first one was my grandfather. There's no question. I think, you have somebody that's in your life by choice to be a reflection of how you are as a man. And I think so for me that, I track back, and for me, that was probably the first greatest mentor for me. My uncle that was in the hair industry was definitely the start of that for competition work and things like that. But I think the big ones then, out there in the industry that people would know the most. Trevor Sorby's always been a massive influence to me because he puts the entire package together. But somebody that was in his camp and trained under him that was massive that I worked with and now work with, Damien Carney. And so he, for me, is just an incredible man first, insanely talented. It was very interesting working with him years ago. I think we've both have matured and both have grown a lot to respect what each other does. At the time, it was, he was lead, and there was so much focus on what he and Sue Pemberton at the time, which is my other color mentor. There was so much focus on what they were doing, and I don't think that there was a lot of infrastructure of how to bring up the other people. And a lot of us got, bored. And while we were so happy to be supporting that, you get to a point where you want to grow into your own thing as well. And so it was about 10 years with Joico, but 10 amazing years that I spent doing incredible stuff, meeting incredible people that I still have great relationships with. But I think, cutting wise, Damien was 100% my cutting mentor. And then Sue for sure was my color mentor. No question. And then I got the opportunity to open up Matrix's Global Academy and moved to New York and was working a lot with Nicholas French. And I remember even in the interview asking, does Nicholas still work with you guys? Because he was an icon. I mean, he is still an icon and just does amazing stuff, is an amazing man. And so spending time with him, 3 months later, I was writing classes with him. So it was a pretty surreal thing to be asking, can I work with this guy? Am I going to be able to work with this guy? And then, by the way, Chris, you're going to be writing classes with Nick. And I spent a lot of time with Nick. And Nick is a funny guy because Nick is one of those that is so English. He'll tell you, that you're doing a bad job before you're going to do a good job, right? And so he was one that taught me a lot about thick skin, but he taught me also to value who you are, what you are, and don't waver. And so for me, that was something that was very important, that it wasn't him necessarily taking me aside. And I think this is important for people to listen to, is you can emulate people by what you watch. You can emulate people and pick up things by what you see. You can emulate people and learn things by how they do things. And so just being by Nick for me he taught me very much about sophistication. He really taught me a top to bottom look. While, Damien and Sue had done a lot of that, he really drove it into my head. That it is a package. And so that for me gave me a very different view on the industry. And then I'd stopped competing for a while and got back into it. I went to Naha with Nick and watched him win his first one. And at the time there was literally him, his wife, the photographer, and two of his friends. There was like 5 or 6 of us there. And, you go to Naha now and there's hundreds of people and thousands of people. And it's amazing. But he looked at me that night and he just knew. He's like, you caught the bug. And I think those are people that stop you, willing to spend the time with you, care enough about you to share their knowledge. And I think that's the stuff that more people need to do. More people need to take the time to make the next generation better. And so those 3 specifically, immensely indebted to and super grateful for. So, and now being able to work with Damien again, he was just here this weekend, spending time with him. and just laughing, of course, working on hair, but just laughing together and sharing together, and it not a pressure cooker of this is what has to be, to just work in an environment where you get to create together again. It's a blessing. But to see that come full circle and almost in reverse positions, it's a little weird. Like, he's so cute and he's so gracious. But I mean, you've worked under him as well, Andrea. You know, can you imagine Damien walking over going, Chris, do you want to check this cut? And I was like, like, I don't need to check that cut, mate. Like, if you're handing this to me, it's done. So it's things like that where but you know, what it has told me is how much he respects what's been done. You know, the approach I take with him, the approach he takes with me, and to get to a point where he is an artistic director for our brand, but he knows that the Clicks has me leading it, and he champions it. And I never want to be anyone's boss. I want to be their colleague. I want to be their partner. And that's how we roll it. And he is super supportive of it, and he brings a wealth to it. But having those moments with people like that are just priceless. And I think there's so many years, so many times, Andre, that we go so fast. It's like, you know, there was years there, I was 40 weekends with some of these people on the road, and you just don't realize the impact they've made on your life. And I think, you know, going through the time of COVID where we all had to stop, it really let me reflect on those people. It let me reflect on who has been such champions in my life, who looked at me different than what I sometimes at the time saw for myself, and who is stern enough and honest enough to give you real feedback. Because I think a lot of times people don't want to hurt people's feelings, but I think when you can do it in a kind way and do it in a way where people are open to learning, and I always try and keep myself in that humility and vulnerability of learning, people in this industry will share. And I've been lucky enough to rub elbows with some of the most insanely talented people out there, and I like to surround myself with far more talented people than I. It makes you look better. So, you know, I mean, on from Nick was, you know, when I started CBC, Sam Villa was a huge mentor to me. He knew something was going on, that we were going to do something, and he approached me. And in a lot of cases, I think people would have looked at that as like your instant competition. And Sam just crushed that. And he was the first person to come to me and goes, I don't know what you're up to, but if you need anything, let me know. And he's always been that way. And we've grown into such a great relationship and such a love for each other. And then I would say probably my newest and most interesting mentor is the co-founder of Clicks, which is Charles Brown. He is deep tech. He's taken multiple companies to Fortune 500s, but he is wickedly smart and teaches me so much about the big picture. He keeps me very much in the moment of like how this business is run, why it's run. While I don't always like looking at Excel spreadsheets, right? It's very enlightening in how things are done. So that for me has been great, for him to be able to trust enough to share and want me to know more, and saw that. And so he, again, I think was somebody that came into my life as a mentor, as a coach. And I don't use that word lightly. I have a lot of people that have influenced me, but there are very few that I would go, you are definitely a mentor to me, and you are definitely a coach to me. I think I caught him a little off guard, 3 months in, going, you're my new mentor. And he was like, I don't know about all this, but you're supposed to be just doing some hair and paying attention to stuff. But we've grown into a great relationship, and can have some just amazing conversations. And to be in that situation where a co-founder, and you can look each other in the eye and have those conversations, I think he's seen enough and done enough digging into who I am and what I'm about, that there has become an immense trust with each other. And that's a hard thing to build in a short amount of time. And that's, I think, actionable. You got to be able to have the action with people, so people want to feed that. And I think that somewhere along the line, every one of those people I mentioned saw something that they wanted to feed that. And that was beyond gracious and appreciative.
So beautiful. I mean, I heard so many amazing things as you were sharing. And I mean, one thing that stood out is just like confident humility within our craft and being passionate about paying it forward. And I think that's something that you do. It's something you mentioned about Damien. Damien's on my list too. There's a lot of full circle moments happening right now, you guys. It's real cool. And that's something that I'd like to say as well, is like, be in the moment, but play the tape forward enough to know that you don't know where you're going to be. You don't know who the next person is that you're going to be working with, what that dynamic is going to look like. So work hard, be kind, be confident in what you're doing, but keep that humility. I mean, the reason you and Damien always get the very best out of their team and have the reputation that you have is because you treat people like human beings. You treat them like they matter. You pour into them, and it shows, because when you're working alongside with artists that wouldn't really ask you to do anything that they wouldn't do or have not already done, that goes a really, really long way. So I really think that is huge. I know you talked a little bit through your mentors, like being on stages and doing shoots. And I mean, I remember you introducing me to Nick at Naha. We met for our birthdays and I had never been. So I'm seeing like avant-garde work for the first time for real. And my mind was blown. Like, I was just like, how did that even happen? Like, how did someone make that? Like, it was a milestone moment for me in my career. And Damien went on to shoot my first and only, but maybe it like wasn't my thing, but it was an amazing experience. And I entered Naha once, and you were the one that kind of like push that along, and Damien's the one that ended up shooting it, and it was a really, really amazing experience. Sometimes when something's not your thing and you get stagnant, I feel like if you go outside of that for a minute, it takes you back and places you in a better position for the things that you are into, because you expanded it, and then you come back and you have this clear focus and this like refreshed, like just renewed passion. So I would recommend that. Like, sometimes step outside of what your gig is, get outside your wheelhouse a little bit so that you can like get some like flow into that wasn't there before. I think that's a really, really cool thing. So I do have a couple more questions for you. I know we're taking some time. So you shared, I mean, competitions that you've won, you've led teams. I kind of want to ask you, you're still doing the things that scare you. You're still like pushing yourself. So like, what now? Like, what scares you now? What has scared you in the past, and like, how do you push past those fears? Like, what would you tell people that are listening, that are like dreaming big? Like, what does it look like to actually live this out? Because so many people engage their imagination, but they don't separate it from what's like real and purposeful and what's fantasy. And when I say fantasy, it really sometimes is just the fact that living it out and putting in the work is different than just wanting it.
That's so well spoken. I think the biggest thing, Andrea, is like I said, when I started beauty school, I didn't have a plan. You very much need a plan. And while you may not know what that plan is at this moment, I think you said something really poignant, is try everything right now. I think it all starts in beauty school. I think if you engage it there, you're going to engage it out into the industry. I think if you're a little shit in beauty school, a bit like I was in the beginning, and you carry that through, you're going to be a little shit in the industry and you probably won't last. We don't need turnover in this industry. What we need are people that look at this as a serious profession, because the thing for me that drives me bananas is I know some of the most savvy, business, smart people that come from this industry. And yet, when I talk to, friends that are lawyers or doctors or whatever, you're a hairdresser. There's some really smart, incredible people that have done amazing businesses in this industry that are hairdressers. And so I think that my thing is, we need to look at it as, is it the profession that it is? We need to take it in that capacity and treat it as that, and curate it. And I think that when we can do that and give our best, we don't know what our end day is. You have to put your best foot forward. You have to want to do something a little bit different and try things a little bit different. Is it always easy? No, it's not. I think during the time for me going through COVID, I'll share with you, it was very much going from traveling the world and being on the road all the time to literally nothing. And so all that energy that I would pour out, also people pour back to us, right? When you're standing on a stage, we think we're giving to everybody, but they give so much to us as well. And when that all stopped, it really just put me in a position of, who am I? What am I? The labels that people put on you, I think, were really interesting. While I've won many awards, led many teams, global this, artistic that, I'm Chrystofer Benson. And you have to be happy with what it is you do and who you are. But I think you also can't be satisfied to just sit. The world owes you nothing. So you have to put one foot in front of the other. And I think the best way I would describe it as set small goals, set goals that you can achieve in a day. I know this sounds silly, but like I have a to-do list all the time, and it could be the stupidest things. Go to the mail, go to the bank, go to whatever, because what it does for me is it builds traction. And I take the black marker, cross it off, because then I go, all right, there's one and there's two. And then it's the medium goals. Start working on your collections. So for me, those become the medium goals. It could be in the salon, get another client, the next week, build that to the next. Let me get 2 clients. Let me take the clientele I have and expand on what I do with them, because you don't need a ton of clientele to really make great money. It's servicing people. And this is the thing that I think people need to get back to, is really looking at people, hearing people, understanding people, and caring about people when they sit in front of them and engaging with them. And we need to get back to the idea of it isn't a specific way. There's a million ways. And my story is Chrystofer Benson's story. Everybody's story is different and everyone has value in what they do. It's just realizing that value for yourself. But I think you have to find things in this industry that ignite you and that set your passion, set your fire. Competition work, photo work, that's the stuff that turns me on fire. And is it me competing against other people? Yes, because that's where you're putting it. But I don't look at it as, oh, I have to go beat this person. I look at it as, what can I do and put it out? And I know I'm competing against myself. I know who's showing up there because it's consistently those same people internationally as well as nationally. And they do great work. But what can you do for yourself? And I think once you get out of beauty school, you can't raise your hand and go, can I get this checked? You have to be the self-disciplinary to go, am I doing my best work? Am I doing the best thing I can do today? We've all let somebody walk out of the salon and go, that could have been better. We've all done it. But I think that's where that's where growth happens, and that's where I think it's challenging yourself to go, can today be better? Can I do it better today? Do I care enough about this person and this industry that it's not just a job? And I think that's for me where it became a career trade that I was talked into, to this is something that I'm going to do, to it's a lifestyle. Everything I do revolves around my industry. Our vacations will roll around, let's go down and do a photo shoot, and then we'll hang out for a few days at where we are, right? But honestly, we get together with our friends. What are we doing? We're prepping for shows, but we still have a good time. So I think it's finding that balance of surrounding yourself with people that you feel like it's not work. You feel like it's, growing together, learning together, challenging each other, but you have to set goals that scare the shit out of you. And I still have those goals. I think you have to set goals that if you achieve a short term, medium term, you better set goals that scare you. Because if you don't, you're going to just let life hand you what it's going to hand you. And the difference of that is what your success is and what your success isn't.
Preach. I love it. Good stuff. Such good stuff. And you said a couple things. I feel like, COVID shut down. My friends, you were not alone. I think it was such a time to separate our identity from what we do and who we are. And if you were able to take that time and say, I am not just what I do, but I am who I am, and then go back to what you do with that shadow work done. Wow. Game changer, personally, professionally, yes. All the things. And I love you saying we get together with our friends and what do? Hair. I remember driving in my Jeep.
It's true.
Yeah. As soon as you said that, I got a flashback of driving in my Jeep with you to my salon over 20 years ago and saying, hey, is it okay if I talk about this color technique formula thing? I was thinking about, do you ever get tired of talking about hair, or is this okay? And you were like, no, I never get tired of it. And I was like, yes.
I think when you have passionate people and they love what it is, and whether it's hair or even friends that do what they do, I think when you find people that you can be around and they value just your experience in life or your outlook, your perception. I have friends that have taught me so much that have nothing to do with hair, but just their perception and the way they approach life. I think if you're open to looking at things, and then the other thing is, and I think all of us, I've gone through many days of, I hate this, and not just hair, just life. This sucks. And I think if people don't recognize that there's days where you go, man, this is tough. I think during COVID, in my strip down, where I finally moved, I ended up moving during COVID. We built a studio where we're at. And I think the cool thing was, in one aspect, is I finally got like all of the awards I ever got and put them in one place. But there became a moment, honestly, Andrea, where I looked at those and really resented them. And I realized all the time that I was away from my family, the sacrifice, relationships, and you just go, was this worth it? And I think that the people that is my inner circle always maintain that, whether it's, we've talked in 2 years, that they can pick up a phone and it's just like we talked yesterday. And those people for me mean so much, because it's that kind of relationship that they know how driven you are. They know how much sacrifice you give. And ultimately, I look at those down and go, I'm super grateful. But there was a time during this downtime of COVID that I looked at those, wanted to throw them away, break them, just thought, why did you? Because I think the work-life balance was so out of whack. Of, you spend all this time into your industry and it was just gone. And you go, this is my entire identity. But it's not. And who you are is one aspect of that. And I think it was getting back to that, to realize you can inspire people all the time, and it doesn't have to be through hair. Just be a good person, to your point. Be kind, care about people, have a smile at somebody. I mean, it's not that hard. And you may change their day. But I think going from those aspects of anger and, the world owes me, to focusing on things that were negative of what I didn't have, as opposed to what I have and the opportunities, and find the positives, is where it really changed for me. Being grateful. Every day I wake up and go, thank God I'm alive. And then I go, you obviously have something to do, right? You obviously still have something to do. And then what are you grateful for? Because your day can start really crappy, and your day can start really good. And I'm not saying every day is good, but there's, I really try and start with, what am I grateful for? And it could be something so simple as just the people I'm around.
Well, I am grateful that you're alive, and thank you for sharing that, my friend. I think we all went through our own little version of that, and you made it through, and here we are. And let me just tell you, you still have some work to do. But I mean, just that grateful heart. We don't have control over a lot that's happening, but the things that we 100% have control over are the things that you mentioned and are talking about. What imprint are we leaving on other people? Like, what interactions we have control over our interactions, the way that we talk, the way that we act around other people. It does make a difference. And no matter what's happening around us, like, our work is still the same: to be kind, to leave an imprint that is going to last longer than ourselves, to leave a legacy where people hopefully get to say, like, that person did something that helped or came alongside me personally or professionally that made a positive difference or change in my life. I mean, end goal, like, right there. Thank you for sharing all of that. You mentioned lists earlier. I'm such a list person, and I just have to say that sometimes people are like, you're so easygoing, you're really lighthearted, you're really this or that. And it's like, well, because there's freedom in the foundation. I have to have structure in order to have spontaneity, and that is the secret in it. Another secret, you said,
Yes.
service, you guys. The secret to success is service, isn't strategy. If you have a vision and you don't know how to achieve it, come along someone else's vision and work with them for nothing first. Those are the things that matter. Those are the things that make things come alive and create opportunity. 100%. Chris, you have given me so much, but I'm feeling like a really greedy girl today. So a last thing, I want to sneak peek what's happening right now with you. What is next? What can we expect? Where does the dream evolution for Chrystofer Benson move from now until the end of this year to next year?
The end of this year. So yeah, I mean, I told you we were just together with a team. I joined Clicks last year. It's a brand new company that is going to, I think, revolutionize a lot in this industry. And I'm excited with the team that's being created. We're about to hit all the shows in a big way. So you will see us at ABS. You will see us at Beauty Changes Lives. You will see us at AHP. You will see us at AHA. You'll see us in Orlando. You'll see us at ICE. And I say that with complete humility, because the team really just wants to bring a realness, a careness, and whether you end up with this brand or not, we just want to bring something to the industry that makes it better for all of us. With that, I think it will have great success, and I really look forward to working with the team and getting it out there. And me personally, yeah, I mean, I still have goals competition-wise that I want to, people ask me all the time, why do you keep competing? Because I still have goals. I still have goals. I still have, things I want to accomplish, and they're starting to come to fruition. But I think it's setting those goals and following them through. So that for me is this next year, and then building a team that while I lead this right now, my goal is to be able to stand off a stage and watch them crush what they do. I think you spark a team, but I think at some point you stand back and watch them succeed. So that's my goal.
Amazing. Yes, I am so excited for you, for Clicks, for what's to come, for being a part of it. Thank you for inviting me into your journey. I am so, so honored. Where can we find you? Everybody, you guys follow, listen, do all the things. Come on, you want some more of this. So, where can our listeners find you?
I hide out in Utah personally, deep in the woods, which is definitely not a joke. It's right because we live in a town of less than 700 people now, if you could fathom that. But and I want people to hear this because I think you can do it from anywhere. I've lived in big cities. I've lived in New York. Don't let that stop you. You can do it from anywhere. So where you can find me is CB Hair, C Benson Hair, and ChristopherBenson.com with the website. And then Clicks Colors, I would definitely check that out. They got a lot going on there, and you can see a lot of what we're pushing out into the industry and what will be coming, because there is definitely some good stuff coming.
Amazing. So you guys heard Chris, all of his advice, his tips, his story. He got vulnerable with us, whether he liked it or not. And no, he liked it. You loved it. Do you have any last words before we close out this session? I know we kind of ran a little long, but hey, we got some things to say.
I think the biggest thing is, embrace your uniqueness. I think for me, when I got into this industry is when I finally found my people, because I felt accepted in being me. And I think the biggest thing I would tell anybody is, champion the people that have taught you. Give them the credit where they deserve. Take ownership of what you do. Leave it better than the way you found it, and give everything you can.
Yeah, like in those last words, you guys, go ahead and rewind, play it back a few times. We need to let all of that just kind of sink in a little bit. So Chrystofer, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Friends, your time and your attention is so valuable. I really appreciate you holding this space with us. We are a podcast about business and growth-minded podcast where we're here really to empower salons and you as hairstylists to thrive with purpose. So continue to dream big, set goals, and take action. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Till next time.